Hello and welcome to the CourseMaker podcast. Today, I am delighted to introduce our guest, Peter Jausovec. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Right, so Peter, you're an O'Reilly author, a speaker, an engineer, and you've recently released the course Start Kubernetes. So obviously very accomplished. Could you tell the audience a bit about your background?
Sure. So I've been in tech for probably around 15 years. Graduated in Europe with computer science degree, then moved to US. I was hired by Microsoft. And that's where I spent the most of my career, was at Microsoft. I was working on SharePoint, on Visual Studio, on tooling. And then in the recent couple of years, I started working more with container and Dockers and container orchestrators. And that led to Kubernetes and service mesh and all these cloud native things. And during that time, I've also written a couple of books. I co-authored a couple of books, so I got exposed to that world as well. I've done a lot of conferences, a lot of conference talks, a lot of workshops in the past year, especially traveled around the world, talked about Kubernetes, service meshes, and just cloud native in general.
And was there a particular moment where you decided, okay, I really want to focus on distributed computing and containers, that kind of thing, or was it a gradual process?
It was more of a gradual process, I think. Back at the previous company, right, when we did the transition, it was more of a, okay, so this cloud thing is evolving. We have to be in it, right? What can we do? What do we have to do to go with the flow where the industry is going? So it was more of a gradual. There wasn't a light bulb moment or something like that where it's like, oh, I have to now focus on cloud and distributed systems. It was more of a went from the tooling. It was like a natural progression, I would say, to cloud, I guess.
And you obviously, before putting out any courses, you started with authoring books. What was the journey like going from, everyday engineering through to deciding, okay, I'm going to write a book on this?
So the first book that I co-authored, it was on the technology that we were working on at Microsoft at the time, and it wasn't too hard or too complex because I was already working with the technology, So I knew what it was, I knew how it works. So it was fairly straightforward, I guess, to write it down, put it in words. Of course, there's a lot of help that was needed, especially from the editorial side, right?
Sure.
And that's what you get. That's like a really, really good thing that you get if you're going with I'm going to say a real publishing house or a real publisher. You get all that support, right? They're going to make sure that you sound good, that it reads well, no grammar mistakes, nothing like that. So
Yeah.
you have a lot of support, right? But then now if you contrast that to, well, I'm going to write it myself and self-publish, all that is gone, right? So you have to go,
Sure.
You're one-man band where you have to go out, you have to make sure that the thing reads well, that the screenshots are correct, that all the file formats are, at least you don't have to worry about printing it, right? If you don't want to, but
yeah,
there's still a lot of work that you have to do in marketing. And of course, you're not going to have the same reach as big publishers do, right? So I think that was still is one of the biggest thing to getting the course out or getting the books out on your own, right?
100%. Yeah. And what was the journey like then, going from publishing a book onwards towards your first course?
Yeah, so I originally started, I think a year and a half ago, I started with a book originally for Istio Service Mesh. So I wrote that book. I set up a Gumroad page, I set up pre-orders, set up all that, finished the book. That was in, I think, June or July when I released it. And then I just couldn't sit still. I was like, oh, I should probably record videos as well. Maybe everyone is doing that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, by everyone it's people that you follow, I guess, right? It's not everyone is doing it, but I figured maybe I should do videos, right? And there was the whole, oh, now I have to get the microphone, I have to get this, get that, right? So I decided to do the video course as well for the book, to accompany the book, I guess. And that's how my first course went, right? That's what I did for my first course. It was more of an extension of the book. So whoever pre-ordered the book also got the course, the video course for free included, right? And then of course I got the created separate tiers for the book and the videos and so on.
And what was the reception like from students? I mean, were students appreciative of the videos? I mean, I imagine you always get a bit of a split, right?
Yes, there's always a split. I mean, originally started with the book, so it was I gave the videos away to those customers already, right?
Yeah.
So whoever purchased the book got the videos as well. But there's a lot of people that also got the videos afterwards as when it was a separate package. But I think it's still I think it's I can't say if there's more books or more videos, it all depends on the person. Like I'm
Mm,
very I would prefer a video myself. I'm a very practical person. I like to try things, like to see things, right?
yeah.
I don't mind reading a book either, but I would read the book like later on. I would probably go through the videos first.
Okay.
And the split is, I guess, similar with other people. It's like some people like books more, some people like videos, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Different learning styles for different people. Some
Yes,
people just want to just show me the code, right? Some people have that
exactly,
attitude as well.
exactly. I just show give me the source code that you have in the book, and then I'll figure it out myself, right?
Yeah. Okay. And so you've now recently published your second course, Start Kubernetes. So what made you decide to create that particular course?
Yeah, so the first one, the Learn Istio, was a very niche, I would say, because it's a service mesh. It runs on top of Kubernetes. So it's a very niche audience. And I figured, well, if people are going to learn about service mesh or people who want to learn service mesh, they probably need to know Kubernetes as well. So I kind of worked backwards, said, all right, I should write or do something about Kubernetes. And I remember back when I started learning Kubernetes, it was fairly, I mean, it is complex, right? There's a lot of new terminology. You have to understand how things work. So it's not like, oh, I'm just going to pick it up. It's a small library and I'm going to use it, right? It's a huge thing. So I figured I should create something that's specifically targeted to beginners. It was originally a book. I knew I'm going to do videos as well, right? But something that would be targeted to beginners. And because I'm very practically oriented, like I like to learn by doing and practicing things. I figured I'm going to do a video, I'm going to do a book, I'm going to do videos, but I'll also want to do like a practical component. And this is where the labs came in. So I created a
Yep.
set of 41 labs that you install in your Kubernetes cluster, you run in your browser, and you have the actual exercise that you have to do, and you can verify if your solution is correct or not and get tips. And if you're stuck, you can just look at the solution and run it and go through it. So that was like, it was, I guess I didn't learn from my previous course that book and videos are a lot. I wanted to add a third component to it, which was these labs. But it was really fun. I mean, I did everything from scratch. So I did all my diagrams, all the writing, of course, all the coding. I use React and TypeScript, running on top of Kubernetes. So I was also taking this more of a learning experience for me, right?
Sure.
I never used like TypeScript and React during my real day job, right? So it was like a nice break from the day job to learn something different
Yeah.
and learn something new. So yeah, so it's 3 components. It's called Start Kubernetes. There's a book. There's 20, I would say 23 videos, I think, and 40 something exercises in the labs.
So I'm really interested in these labs. Do students have to like download and install Minikube or something like that on their
Yes,
local machines?
yes. Yeah. So the idea is that if I back up a little bit, right? So when I started with this, there was this grandiose idea of me creating a full-fledged platform, online SaaS. People would sign up, right? You can run it from the browser on my clusters, right? And that's all it is, right? But of course, there's a lot of work involved in that. It's not as
Yeah.
simple as, right? You can't do it in a couple of weeks or months, right? There's like teams of people working on this for years. So I was like, all right, so what is the closest thing that I can get to that? And it was, well, what if I give the application or give the system to the users and they can install it in their own cluster and they can run it themselves. So it's like a self-hosted solution. But
Right.
yeah, you need either Minikube, Docker for Mac or Windows, or even a real cluster if you want. You get a set of instructions, you get a set of YAML files with Docker images. You install that on your cluster, you go to your browser, and you have an interface where you can browse through different exercises. You get a terminal window inside the browser that's connected to your cluster, and it's running inside a container in your cluster. So you have access to your cluster, and you can do the exercises like that.
Yeah, no, that practical side to it sounds really powerful. Yeah, I can imagine that being a great tool for students.
Yes. Yeah. So I try to cover all, like, someone who likes books, they're covered with the books. Someone who likes videos, they're covered with videos. And there's the other group where they're hands-on and just want to do it practically. They're covered with that, with the labs as well.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of, if you're a student who's approaching a technology like Kubernetes, what sort of tips would you have for someone in that position? Maybe they're not familiar with it. What do your students who excel do differently compared to other students?
So the I'm not gonna say the issue, but Kubernetes is, there's a vast, like, it's a huge thing, right? And it's very hard to, you're not going to learn it in a week, right? So if
Mm,
you see a book that says learn Kubernetes in 24 hours or whatever those popular books were, you're not going to learn it in 24 hours, right? So my suggestion is, if you really want to learn about Kubernetes, as either as from the DevOps side or as a Kubernetes application developer or someone who runs applications on Kubernetes or develops applications that run on Kubernetes, start with Docker first. Understand Docker, understand containers, because you have to know that those are like the basics, the basic building blocks, if you will. Start with that first, and then dive into Kubernetes, but try to learn it like in bite sizes. Don't try to bite too much because you'll
mm,
get lost. There's a lot of new terminology, a lot of different terminology, a lot of rules, a lot of APIs, a lot of components. So take it bite size, right? Learn slowly. The nice thing about it is you don't need to get a real cloud managed cluster, or you don't have to go to cloud providers, pay money to get a cluster. You can run it locally on your computer. You don't even have to have a very powerful computer to run it, which is really good, because years ago you would need like a pretty beefy machine to run Kubernetes locally.
sure.
Not anymore. So yeah, there's everything is out there. Kubernetes.io, that's the main website for Kubernetes. There's a lot of documentation there, a lot, and it can be overwhelming, right? That's
Mm,
the whole problem, because you'll click on documentation there and there's pods, services, deployments, daemon sets. You'll get lost, right? If you don't know the basic terminology, at least. But yeah, my advice would be start slow. Don't expect to learn everything about it within a week or so. Just start slowly. And the way that I would learn, that works for me, is practical examples, right? Try to containerize one of your websites or one of your services or something, and then see how you could move that maybe to Kubernetes and run it on Kubernetes.
yeah, definitely. I think very good advice. And then for yourself, right? I mean, obviously, you've been on a learning journey going from first creating your Istio course and now creating this one. How would you say that your approach to teaching has changed between the two courses?
I mean, my approach is still the same. I try to, even when I did a workshop and talks, I always um, try to give the attendees like a minimal theoretical knowledge or understanding of concepts, and then just dive into the practical examples. I
Mm,
don't think my approach has changed. I'm still going, that approach works for me, right? I know people are very different. Some people prefer to learn everything there is theoretically, right, about a thing before they try it. I'm not like that. I try to give like the most important bits out, right? Try to understand those important concepts. Yes, understand that there's a lot of it underneath as well. But for you to get a grasp on or get up and running with something quickly, learn those basic bits, get it up and running, and then go back and dive deeper if you want to or if you need to, right? Because I mean, just like with everything, there's so many knobs and buttons and settings and everything that you can change. There's no way, and it does not even make sense to learn everything going like in depth, right? It's it's easy to do like at least for me, to do a breadth overview of everything, right? And then dig deeper where you want to, or in the areas that are interested.
And thinking ahead for students who are thinking about their careers and learning these sorts of technologies, uh, what sort of impact do you think learning a technology like Kubernetes can have on a student's career?
I mean, it can definitely open you more doors, right? I mean, learning more stuff and knowing more technology is, I always see it as, it's a door opening thing. It's not a door closing thing. You'll probably get more opportunities and more choices to, like, if you're looking for a new job or something, it's always good to have that in your tool belt, especially now when Kubernetes is like extremely popular. Companies are moving to it. New startups are using it, right? It's extremely popular. So it's one of those tools that uh, it's good to know and good to understand. Even if you don't know it in depth, right? It's good to at least have an understanding on what it is and use some basic commands and how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the popularity of Kubernetes is pretty much beyond doubt now.
Yeah.
It's well out of the hype phase. Do you have any predictions for the future of Kubernetes? Do you think it's got a distinct shelf life, or do you think it's going to be with us for quite some time?
I think it's going to be, I mean, first of all, I don't like to make predictions, especially not in tech space, because stuff changes so fast. And, but I do think that it's not something that will go away fast. I think there's a lot of potential, still a lot of potential with the Kubernetes APIs. For example, and this might go more in depth with the Kubernetes, but Kubernetes has a set of resources that are well-defined, et cetera, and come ship with Kubernetes, right? So deployments, pods, services, et cetera. But you can also create your own custom resources. So you can define your own resources. And what you get once you define that and you create a controller, you get a full REST API created by Kubernetes for you to manage those resources.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of power with that API, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that API go out of Kubernetes as well, or at least that style of APIs, right? Move out of Kubernetes and be available in other technologies as well. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential. So it is, if you're thinking, oh, should I learn Kubernetes or not? I don't think that's a question. You should definitely learn it, especially if you're in a DevOps role, or wanted to go to the DevOps role, or if you're planning to develop any applications that will run on Kubernetes.
Yep, definitely food for thought there, I think, for the people listening.
Yes.
Okay, and what about yourself? What's next for you?
I think I have to spend more time on marketing the course. That's always one of the big things that you have to do. I'll be posting regular updates to the course, just like I did with Istio. I always do, like when there's a new version, I update the book. I haven't re-recorded the videos yet, but at least I keep the book updated. I don't have any other course in the near future, but I'll probably do something else at some point. I just don't know what it is yet.
Sure. And where can students go to find out more about you and find your courses?
So for more about me, you can follow me on Twitter. And for more about the Kubernetes course, you can go to startkubernetes.com or learnistio.com.
Okay, and we'll make sure all those links and handles are in the show notes. Well, great to talk to you, Peter. Thanks ever so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris.
All right, bye for now.
Bye.